Hi, here is a little bit more complete video on drawing this coffee mug. One thing that I've done is, with my reference photos, I've sort of thought about how I would crop it so that it fits kind of the, I'm going to be including the shadow as well as the mug itself. So the whole thing creates kind of a nice gestural triangle, as I like to call it. And I'm just sort of thinking about that size as far as how much space I want around it. I'm not going to worry too much about that, but I am going to go to my tried and true steps of, first of all, finding the top point, I also refer to as T, and the farthest right point of the object or objects, the farthest bottom point. And since this drawing is going to include the shadow, I'm going to say the farthest left point, which is going to be something like that. So top, right, bottom, left. The other thing I like doing when I'm starting off drawings is to do this, which I've already sort of started a little bit, is get a sense for if I was going to create an envelope or something that sort of just encapsulated that, what that might look like. Just to start getting an idea of this kind of shape is gonna could encapsulate the whole thing. That's just kind of a general idea. So I am going to complete the what's called the notional space from the original top, right, bottom, and left. The paper is bouncing back and forth, my reference photo. We all have our crosses to bear. That was a joke. So this is the rectangle that I'm sort of thinking about when I'm going to really start laying this thing out and sort of where it's going to fit on the piece of paper. And one way I'm going to get a really an even better idea of the proportions of that rectangle is by sketching the diagonal from corner to corner of the outer box. This is all very sketchy. I usually like doing that in 3 steps, pointing that towards one angle, pointing that towards the other, sketching in the middle to try to see what's going to join them, and do that. So let's see, the other thing I think about is just this triangle or this triangle, and something about tracking down. Let me see, I can go down about this low, go up about that high. If I go lower than that, I'm out of frame. I'm talking to myself now. So now I'm just sort of sketching lines and that will go on forever. And as long as I can emulate a line of this angle that connects one edge to the other edge, it will create a box that is proportional to the one I'm trying to copy. So that would be proportional, roughly, but that's too small of a drawing. Let's go down to about where the bottom of the frame is and go about there. I'm going to come over here and test maybe it's a little bit this is all sort of, you could do this even lighter. In fact, I would encourage you to do this very light. I'm going to end and erase whenever it's bugging you or getting in your way. So I'm going to assess here to see sort of where I think I am. And as I'm looking at this triangle, I think I'm close, except this line is just, the angle is really not straight per se, so it's going to go a little bit further out here. Let me finish up that that rectangle. And that seems okay. I'm sure it's not exactly right, but I'm making all these choices, sort of coming at it from a place of being able to adjust and correct until I keep getting more and more confident. Next, I'm going to look at the midpoints of this bounding box. I'm taking a guess to see maybe that's the midpoint, and I'm using my pencil to check, to measure it, and that looks decent. I'll do the same for over on this side. That's my guess. Using the tip of my pencil and my thumbnail, which you probably can't see that well. Truth be told, I can't see it that well either, but let's see. About right there. And the that is one way of measuring where the midpoint is going to be. The other quick way is to create the other diagonal. And the point where they cross will be the midpoint. This is a great technique to know when we start getting into, especially when we start getting into perspective, more and more perspective. So these are all just reference lines that are going to help me start honing in on, you know, how accurate I am with guessing where the thing is going to be placed inside the area that I'm drawing. So now I'm going to start placing these points. I see that this point is a little bit above halfway, the farthest of the handle. I'm trying to think of the center axis of this coffee mug and where that's going to fall. And that is going to fall about a third over. I want to get a sense for just how wide the mug is going to be. Once again, I can use my center line references. That seems like it's going to be something like that. And let's see, that's interesting. That's sort of about a little bit more than 2/3, it seems to me. Be nudging all these things, I'm sure. But I'm just trying to give myself sort of a sporting chance. The shadow looks like it's going to be this cool shape that's like, well, it actually makes a bit of an ellipse, sort of, but the far point is going to be over here, which looks like it's about 1/3 down in the lower left. So that seems to be enough to start sketching. If that is sort of the left side of the mug, and that is the right side of the mug. I'm going to scooch that over just a touch. That was sort of the trying to get the center of the top ellipse. So I'm going to sketch in that ellipse. I'm going to do the same thing at the bottom here, remembering that the lower ellipse implied at the bottom is going to be more open, more circular, and so the front is going to be more curved, even though our brain is sort of trying to convince us it's less curved. So that seems fine for that. I'm going to create a rectangle within a rectangle. This is going to represent the area that the handle takes up. And it conveniently, at least on here, seems to go right through the diagonal. On my drawing, it doesn't. So who is off is the question. I'm gonna say that this mug needs to be a little bit wider. That way, the mug handle will attach right about where the diagonal is going. Still not exact, but this is all loose and blocking it in. How does the bottom of the handle relate to the midpoint? It looks like it should be maybe a little bit more than halfway. So that's my guess. I can tell it's, by looking at this, I think it's off, but not by a lot. I'm going to sort of sketch it down a little bit. All these lines really light. I used the metaphor of putting together a piece of furniture from IKEA. Everything is extremely finger tight at the beginning as I'm just trying to assemble my pieces. Don't be tightening stuff at all, because you'll be adjusting. I'm going to just sort of quickly gesture in. Gesture is sort of an, well, gesture is certainly a term. It often just sort of gets used to be sort of synonymous with sketching or getting a quick idea. And one thing you're going to see me do is, for the shadow, I am going to try to imagine the entire shape of what's casting it as well. It's the cast shadow. Shadows are a lovely, big, fun topic to discuss. But it's going to be something like that. For the handle is a fun and somewhat challenging thing overall. So for right now, I'm just going to sort of sketch in a basic indication for the shape and the area that that's going to take up. I'm not going to worry about all the specifics, but I do want to get a basic size, definitely for the overall size and compared to the rest of the mug. One thing I can do is to see if that rectangle seems to be really the correct proportions. I can imagine the diagonal. See if that seems pretty close. And it seems pretty close right now. All still very sketchy and loose. The other thing I can do is take this point and this point down here of the mug and imagine the diagonal of a rectangle that would create of those points. So that would be basically this point and this point. And just getting an idea of, does that seem about right? I know it's hard, it's probably not showing up much on this, but it does seem okay. Once again, all this very sketchy and very loose, very erasable. We're honing in on it. Let's see. Shadow doesn't look like it goes up that high. that seems a good lay-in, block-in, just to get a general sense of what's up, what's down, how big this is going to be in relation to everything else. I'm going to stop it for there and come back and do some more in a bit.